You are now listening to Ride With Me, the Fraternity Podcast.
Welcome to Ride With Me, episode 42. Today is March 13, 2021. And today on the podcast is my friend John.
Hey, Andy. How you doing?
I'm good, bud. How you been?
Good. Really good. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, no problem, man. I was going to kind of do this like a surprise type thing because a lot of people know this individual that we're going to talk about. So I figured let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Today on the podcast, I have our good friend Scotty's brother. Older brother, right?
Yes.
Scotty.
Yeah, I'm the oldest in the family. He's the youngest.
He was the youngest? Okay.
Yeah.
Scotty, 2 years ago on the 11th, lost his life, and he is missed like there's no tomorrow. And since it is his 2-year anniversary since he's been gone, I decided, let me get John. Why? No offense, I did reach out to your sister, but she never read my message, so...
Yeah, you know what? Just come to me.
There we
go. Got you covered.
So it was beautiful that I sent you a message, and within like 5 minutes you responded, I would love to. I was like, perfect. But yes, I decided to have you on the podcast since you know Scotty better than we did. We knew Scotty as the friend, as the salesman, as the goofball. You knew him as a son, a brother, an uncle. You knew him as the family, Scotty, because the one thing about Scotty, he kept those two worlds separated. Go ahead.
No, I said that's funny because on the other end, he kept his work life and music life and all that separate too.
Yeah.
So it's really he wasn't a man of many words when it came to that stuff.
Yeah, your mom was very, very touched of how many friends Scotty had.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, this, like I said, Scotty kept his two worlds separate. So, again, go ahead.
No, what I was saying is that, yeah, my mom was really surprised and I was too. I mean, I knew for what he did for work and stuff, but I was just amazed at all the people he touched.
Yeah. In
his life, and it was just amazing. Even the day of his services, to see all those people share. That were there to support the family and everything. And it was just truly amazing. I mean, we knew he had a different life in a sense, but not to that magnitude,
Yeah.
So we were really touched by everyone.
This is how much, I said it already in a couple episodes ago, but this is how much of an impact Scotty made in our lives that, my wife doesn't have children of her own. I married her I had my 3 kids, and, we're trying, and the boy said, if you guys have a boy, can we name him Scotty? How much of an impact Scotty made in everyone's lives.
Yeah. What's amazing is that, he didn't get married. He didn't have a family that we knew of. So, to this day, we're like, somebody's going to come into my mom's house and going to say, "Hi, I'm Scott's son."
Right.
Just based on the reputation he had with the ladies as he put to us.
Yeah.
We're like, and it's funny because I mean, even during the wedding, the funeral, after the funeral, we were back at the house after we had the gathering and stuff, and we talked about, we're like. And we were just looking to see if we saw a little one that looked like Scott running around the whole area. And we were just like, and we were they all had talked about it ahead of time because he never said anything. But he'd bring a girl home once in a while, but he very rarely ever brought a woman to the house.
It's funny because he would always want to claim my son on his taxes because my son is light skinned, colored eyes. He goes, Andy, he can pass as my son. Let me let me borrow him.
Yeah, well, he was he liked the fact he was like a godfather to several kids, and he was a little bit about him. He was a great uncle in general. So
I believe it.
So that was the one thing. I mean, what you guys have all seen with other kids. I mean, he was that way with my kids, my brother's kids, my sister's daughter. He just treated them like his own, and which a good uncle would do. Know? But yeah, but he also loved it. The thing with him is you wouldn't know it, but he loved kids. He really loved kids, and you see that, but he would never admit to it. He always cracked on the kids. He always cracked on my daughters for everything. He always cracked on them, but he would give them the world, anything he could do for them, he would do for them. When they were younger, he'd take them to go buy toys for Christmas and do all these things. He'd take, and then when they got older, to go to Chumash and do all these other things, But he was just a kind-hearted guy, and that showed in his personal life as well. He
came when my kids did their first Holy Communion. Scotty came over, and our buddy Mark came over, and my buddy Mark gave each one of the kids $20. So he's asking the kids, "Hey, how much money did Mark give you?" He's, "Oh, $20." And he's like, "F that. Mark's not going to outgive me." And he gives the kids $40 each. So he loved kids, man. I give you, he loved kids.
Yeah, he's always been that way. Ever since he's been young, that's how he was. He's a big kid himself. You know that.
He was, he was.
Yeah. So we used to have some great times when he was, being the youngest brother of three. The youngest brother always took the blame for everything. So and my brother Mark was always the one that was the instigator. He would always get him in trouble. So but and the big thing with him, I don't know if you know, he would always he liked wrestling, like World Wrestling Federation and all that stuff.
I think we all did at one point.
Yeah, the Hulk Hogan, the whole thing, and we actually went to a couple shows when he was younger. When they used to have it at the Ventura County Fairgrounds during the fair, we got front row seats. He saw Hulk Hogan and everything. He went with his Hulk Hogan bandana and the whole thing. And, well, we actually, when we got back to my parents, which I think I was still living there at the time. He wanted to imitate jumping off the top rope, and he would get on top of the couch.
Oh no!
Would literally try and jump on my brother, and he would be in his underwear and no shirt, and he would just jump off the rope, and he would smack, and he broke one of my mom's. I don't know what it was, but I mean, he was just. And he ended up getting in trouble. We didn't, I was egging him on, and my brother was messing with him, and then my brother Mark blamed him, and he got in trouble. But that was history tells. He always got the blame for everything, So, and that's just the nature of a little brother. And he didn't care. He was lighthearted. He didn't care. It was until the day he was bigger than my brother Mark, because my brother Mark was always bigger, and once he sized him up better. And Scott started fighting back. Scott did have a temper, at times. He would get in there and he started fighting back, and that was the last time he ever got picked on. So, but he was a big kid. He loved playing, as you know, video games and all these different things. And that was the way when he was a kid. He just, I used to, I was like 8 years older than him, so. When I was a teenager, you can take him around and we'd buy things and we'd go do stuff. But he's just a big kid at heart. Him and I were pretty close growing up.
Even though
he was my younger brother.
Yeah.
So,
it was our routine every Friday night. We would, no joke, I would get home from work and I would probably take a nap, and then my wife would wake me up like at 9 o'clock. Hey, Scotty, text you. And we would play Call of Duty from 9 till like 2 in the morning, or till when one of us would fall asleep on the microphone. And it was our Friday ritual every Friday night to get online and play. And I miss that. I miss that, And it's one day our buddy Chris, he finally got into the gaming with us, and he asked, like, is this what you guys did with Scotty? And we said yes, and you can hear it in his voice that that's what he missed out on, because he never played video games until now.
Yeah, Scott was really good at that. You know, when they were younger, I mean, he always had the latest, you know, Nintendo, the latest PlayStation. And out of anything he always wanted for Christmas was a new system or new games.
Yeah,
that's all he ever wanted. You know, so, and he was pretty darn good at it too. I mean, he used to beat me all the time. So, but he was he didn't like it when I beat him, but you know, but he was really good at it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he like I said, he impacted a bunch of people. He trained a bunch of guys. I mean, some guys still have their job at the company because of him, and you know, he's just a good heart. Even my wife, I don't know if I said it already, but my wife, when I first started doing this, she's like, you know who would have loved to do this with you? And I drew a blank, and she said Scotty, and she's right. Scotty would have loved to have done this, and it's like he sang, I just talk, you know, so I can't sing for shit.
Yeah, that's funny. With we knew he sang, we knew he did all these other things, but we really didn't know how good he was. And then, you know, when I saw a couple of his things that he sent me, and I was just like, damn, I don't, you know, this is Scott. I didn't know he's out acting like he's in the hood and, you know, being tough and everything. And I'm just like, this isn't the knucklehead I know, you know. but there was a different side to him, you know, and he knew when to turn it on at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, that was the thing with him, you know, and you know, even in his music, I didn't realize how talented he was when it came to understanding talents of others, because he was really good at reading people, you know, and he knew if somebody had something in him, and he would know how to find that in him. And even when he was working, I mean, you see that when he was training.
Yeah.
You know, he knew their capabilities, you know. And that's, you know, part of the industry, you learn that. You know, because, you know, in the grocery industry and in the beer industry and stuff, because I came from the grocery industry myself. I was in the grocery industry for 30 years. And as a salesman, as a manager, a regional manager, and so on. And actually, Scott and I worked together for about 8 years.
Okay.
Side by side. He used to work for Schwann's, you know, delivering pizzas and all that stuff.
The frozen foods, right? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, I actually hired him or brought him in. I told my boss, you need to hire this guy because even though he's my brother, he's a hard worker, because I knew what he did before. And so my boss was super cool, Todd, and he said, sure, I'll bring him in. And he made him my delivery driver. So I was a salesman and he was my delivery driver.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which was interesting because it was hard for him to take orders from me. Because we had that fine line of work and personal. But you know, it was funny because I never treated him that way. But there was times when I had to, you know, you have to take the lead on it. But after a while, we became like a team of two salesmen, even though he was doing all the deliveries and I was mainly doing sales. I actually pushed him to do more sales because he didn't want anything to do with sales at first. You can believe that. He just wasn't a salesman. He just wanted to deliver stuff and go home.
That is hard to believe.
No, he actually would get up at 3 in the morning. He'd meet me. We used to have a route in San Fernando Valley. We delivered like all the grocery stores there. And I'd meet him out there like 4 or 5 in the morning in Westlake, Calabasas. And we would just be side by side. As he was dropping it, I'd be merchandising, he'd keep going, and then we'd meet up at the end somewhere, and then we would have lunch or something, you know, and then we'd come back to the office. But yeah, for the longest time, he wasn't really a salesperson.
Wow.
He didn't want any of that. And, you know, he was young at the time he was probably in his early 20s, you know, when he started. And then after a while, I kind of had him starting to do sales while I was doing other things. I said, why don't you go sell it? You know, you go figure out what you're going to do, what you put in there and stuff. And so he would start doing that, you know, and so we were partners as a team for probably, I think side by side, we worked together for 8 years. I think side by side, we were a team for probably about 4 of those years. that we were actually, salesman and driver.
Yeah.
But he was one of the hardest working guys I knew. And as you in the industry, sometimes you get your orders refused, and all these things. You try to order this stuff and get a receiver that's all like, it's having a bad day.
Yeah,
or whatever,
we know that. We know those days.
Well, after a while, when Scott would always get mad at me because I'd have these massive orders going in. I'd sell a display, and I'd like, dude, drop 100 cases here, and he'd look at me like, you are fucking crazy, And so he'd get to the store, and he'd have to unload those and do that. And he'd get there, he'd unload it, get to the receiving dock, and the guy says, I don't want it. I'm going to refuse the order. And he would get furious. He'd call me up and start, bitching at me. And it's like, what did you talk to the guy, whatever? And I'm like, no, I talked to the manager and stuff, everything. He goes, well, the receiver say no. I go, talk to the manager. He'd go in there, he'd start arguing for me, and the manager would be like, no, bring it in and stuff like that. And he'd get arguments, and he'd back me up. He never questioned me on anything as far as my ordering. He would just question the communication portion. But once he knew that, he knew where I was with everything. Sometimes he wouldn't even call me. He just said, they tried to refuse, I went there and took care of it. So that was the start of him becoming a salesman.
Yeah.
Because he was real shy. He really didn't want to do any of that. And then as he saw me a couple times when I'd go to the store, I'd be mad. And I'd just start arguing with the guy and stuff. And I get what I wanted. You keep pushing until they get what you wanted. And he would see that. And then after a while, he was just doing it without even telling me. So by the end of the day, he had, 25 to 30 deliveries, and nothing was refused. And then he told me at the end of the day, oh, yeah, this guy did this, but I took care of it and everything. and after a while, he just turned into a great salesperson. He was, I'll finish the one story about us working together as he was still a salesperson. I used to have a strip club at the end of my route to deliver pizza. So we always made it a point that the last stop of the day was at the strip club. We would drop off the pizza. They'd maybe make us some pizza. We'd say hi to the ladies, and then we were off. So we would do that a couple times a week. So that was kind of our bonding when we were working together and stuff.
That's cool.
So I didn't really tell my wife that much, but at the time, but it was just our thing that we did while we were out there to kind of break up that
stressful day.
The stresses of being out there,
Yeah.
And we would never pay for anything, even the ladies would be like, ask them if they wanted to lap dance, and they would take care of them, but it was just and after that, he just changed, and then there was an opportunity for him to be a salesman, and he went out there, and as you know him as a salesperson, he just kicks butt.
Yeah.
And then when I left that portion of it, and I went to a different division of that company, he was their number one salesman for the longest time. I mean, he was their lead guy. Everybody went to Scott because they knew that he was the guy that could take care of business and would take no crap from anybody, but he was fair and honest with everybody in the store. He never tried to screw anybody or anything. He just went out there and did what he thought was right and made sure that his customers made money because he knew he was going to make money. And anybody that he worked with, he trained them. He, and you see that.
Yeah.
You saw when he was out there. And when he actually left the pizza company, I was still there in the other division. And my old boss said, you know what? He's probably the hardest person to lose. He goes, even more than you. He says, well, because I kind of stayed in the company. So, but he goes, he is going to be a huge loss for this company. And he was, they were never the same once he left, so, but, and he tried numerous different things till he landed in his, last job. And I knew how much they valued him. I mean, I talked to his boss when Scott passed, and he was telling me all the little stories about him.
Yeah.
And I knew, because I knew a lot of the people in his area from previous, and they missed him, they still do. I still see him once in a while. And I mean, that's a huge impact for somebody that even 2 years later now, they still, talk about him and miss him, like he was still here. If I'm like just driving and his song comes on the radio, because I have my music on shuffle and I have
a few songs that I downloaded from YouTube that are Scotty's songs. Even though I don't listen to rap, I don't listen to that kind of music, but it's Scott, so I'm gonna listen to it. And if a song comes on and it's like, I'll go live on Instagram or Snapchat and I'll post a quick video, and a few minutes later I'll get a phone call from somebody. Hey, you okay? You want to talk? I'm like, this song just came on. I missed it, dude, because we all do. And so we try to, besides the freaking pandemic, we tried to meet up. The last time I physically hung out with Scotty was we went down to Oxnard to drop off my kids to go visit their mom, and we had lunch at Red Robin in Ventura at the mall, and that was like the longest. We were there for 2 hours with our buddy Mark and my wife, and that day it's funny that death came up, and he told us, he was like, look, because I guess Mark's wife went to a funeral that day. It was like a Saturday. And he was telling us, you guys better not die on a weekend, because you're not going to ruin my weekend to go to your funeral. And that's when I was speaking up on the day of his funeral. That's what I remembered. I'm like, look where we are on a weekend, fucker.
Yeah, I'm sure he was pissed at everybody that day. Saying stuff. Yeah, he preached a lot of stuff, and then look what he did.
Yeah.
But now, you know what? I mean, to talk a little bit about that, that was probably one of the hardest days to deal with as our family, was the day he passed away. I had just talked to him the night before, and I'll tell you a little story about that, is that, I'm currently the executive director for the Chamber of Commerce here in Santa Paula. Uh-huh. And we have an annual awards program, and I was looking at stocking a bar. We have a bar that we do, So I had asked him, I said, about a week before, I said, hey, can you get me, or a couple of weeks before, is there somebody that can help give us some beer, maybe donate some beer or, and stuff in there? Because I got mine donated, but I said, I need some beer. So he hooked me up with some local companies and stuff. And then I was trying to give him credit. I said, I'm going to give you credit on the program and the companies that are helping support credit and stuff. And we were going back and forth. He's like, I don't want credit. And that was just how he was. He didn't want to take credit for anything and all that. And then I think I talked to him maybe about 8 or 9 o'clock that night before and said, hey, let me just put you on there. Let me take care of this. And he's just kind of like, cool. And that was it. That's the last he texted me.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. So then after I texted him, then I put it in the program and everything. And then I'm like, all right, so I'll get all that set up. And then the toughest thing the next day was when all that, remember when that whole day went down, I was the one who got the call that he passed away. Oh. I got the call from the CHP. Oh, and, man. My son-in-law, who was not my son-in-law back then, Carlos, called me that morning and was like, hey, have you seen Scott or heard from Scott? We're all looking for him. Because my son-in-law works there. We work with him. And he said, no. So I texted him. I'm like, Scott, where are you? Whatever. And then my daughter called and said that Carlos had said that there was an accident. Somebody thinks it was his car or whatever. So I'm like, all right, if you had an accident, at least we figured this out, And so, I called him, left him a message, several messages. And so then, you get that weird feeling, something's not right.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, this is serious. Either he's, dead or he's out and they got to take him to the hospital, whatever. And about an hour later, I was getting ready. I'm in Rotary. We were starting our meeting. I was at the meeting. They were getting ready to start, and I get this weird phone number, and I never answer these numbers. I always look at this message. So I got up and I walked away. I'm like, well, let me see what this is. And I got it. And it was the CHP that called.
Oh.
And they said, they asked who I was. And then I said, yeah, if I was, John, and I said, yes. And they said, well, we hate to tell you that your brother, we passed away. We tried to help him. He got in an accident. And I was just like, holy crap. And in the back of my mind, I knew when I got that call, when for a minute she said that, I'm like, okay, it's bad, And then, and I was just like, oh my God, what do I got to do here? There's 100 people in the room. I'm right there. And I'm just like, holy crap,
Oh, man.
And then, so I walked out, and then I called I think I called my wife first to let her know, and then I called my kids, and then I called my sister. And the minute I called my sister, I told her, she knew. She's like, "Are you?" She was in shock.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, man. So then I called my other brother, and all this is while I'm driving to my parents' house. I'm calling him, and I'm just like, let's get at the house. We got to figure this out, whatever. And then my mom happened to be in Oxnard, and so when I talked to my daughter, she's like, "You want me to go find?" Because we knew where she was. So my daughter went over there and trying to, in case she couldn't drive or whatever. And then I called her and told her, and she was just like,
And your mom is such a sweetheart, man.
Yes. And then when we got to the house, I guess my sister had talked to my dad. She was just getting it from my sister when we walked in the house.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the toughest thing I've ever done in my life, was break the news to my family. And it was tough. I mean, with me, I'm not a very emotional person, and I didn't want to be the one to break down in front of anybody. So I took it, I was kind of the oldest in the family. I'm, being responsible here. I got to keep my head straight. I got to do what I got to do. And I wanted to make sure that everybody was good, before I could even attempt to even feel emotion and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a tough day. So that's the toughest day of my life, having to deal with that. Him and I were close.
Yeah. So. The last time I spoke to him was that Thursday. So he died on the 11th. I talked to him on so that was Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday. So the 7th. I spoke to him on the 7th, and we were actually making plans to barbecue at Mark's house the same weekend he was buried. We were making plans. We talked on the phone. That weekend, I won a trip to Arizona, and he started making fun of me because I've never been on a plane. So he's like, it's a quick death. Don't worry, play La Bamba soundtrack on your way up there. I'm like, you dick! Like, you're.
Oh yeah. He would always do that. Yeah, that was.
He's like, play the Bamba soundtrack, you'll be fine, and it's a quick death. And then I felt like a shitty friend because that entire weekend I'm having a good time, and I'm here that he's sick, that he's laying on this floor and just stretched out, and I don't check on him that weekend, and then on that Monday, I get a phone call from someone that doesn't work for the company anymore, and he tells me, hey, Scotty passed. And I was like, stop fucking around, dude. That's not funny. Don't fuck around like that. And then we all have a group chat. Even after I left the Santa Barbara territory, I continued to stay on that group chat. So I sent a group text and like, hey, dude, please tell me what I just heard was not true. Who the fuck is joking around? And I get a call from Chris to tell me that whatever I heard was true. I believe that everyone in that parking lot heard me cry because I was walking out of one of my accounts, and I called my wife and I told my wife, hey babe, Scotty passed away. And she's like, even she said it, stop fucking around, that's not funny. I'm like, no babe, Scotty died. And when I said that, that's it. Like I couldn't hold myself. Like started crying, and I can tell you, I think everyone in that parking lot heard me cry.
And if you know Scott, you know how much he likes to cry. Like you tell the story about, playing La Bamba and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so when you hear something like that, you don't believe it because you think, okay, Scott's joking, So, but yeah, that was tough, it's just really hard to still today now to kind of, say that he's not there. I mean, I still have him on my phone. I'm still waiting for a text from him.
I don't delete his text messages.
Yeah, and it's just like expecting, like, it's been tough for the family dinners and stuff like Thanksgiving and Christmas, that he wouldn't come in and crack on somebody's food, and just, the whole thing, it's been a little different because he hasn't been there he was the jokester of the family. He was the main jokester.
Yeah.
He was kind of the heart of the family when it came to that, So, You couldn't have a family dinner without him cracking on somebody or talking about religion or politics. He was one of those that would bring it, and he would give his opinion. He was always the conspiracy theorist all the time.
Yeah,
he would always preach all that stuff with the books and the Illuminati and all these different things. He was always talking about that stuff. And so that's what I think we all miss those family dinners that way, with him.
Yeah, there was there was stuff that he would say that my wife, okay, Scotty, okay, you know Rico and Mambo, okay. When she saw Rico and Mambo at his funeral, she was like, holy shit, he wasn't lying. Because that's how Scotty was. Like, you could only believe half the shit he would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the way it was at the house too. And you knew he was bullshitting something. He was good. He's a great storyteller. But he would just run on and on about all this stuff. But he was pretty genuine. He was, and so I think I believed a lot more stuff than I probably should have of what he would say sometimes. But we would have some great discussions. So
yeah,
and he was and he was very smart.
He was
very well learned. He really knew his stuff. So whenever he argued, he had the knowledge to back it up.
Yeah.
So you couldn't run too much past him. He would, even like with my kids, he talked to my kids and he would know things about what they do, and he'd learn things and he'd teach them things, and stuff. But yeah, he was he was pretty book smart too. He read a lot of books. So, which surprised me because I'm like, guy reads. But no, he was very smart, and he knew his stuff, which was great, I mean, we could always get a good, honest answer out of him. He, whenever we needed an opinion on something, if he didn't like something, he'd tell you he didn't like it. Yeah. So I think with my wife, him and my wife always got along really well, and my wife would always tell him how it is. She would push him back. She was the one in the family that pushed him all the time. So there was situations like you knew he was like barbecuing. Yeah. He liked his smoker, his whole thing where he would be out all night smoking meat, or whatever. Yep. And so he'd be back at my mom's house and he would just be back there all night doing whatever, And then so the next day, because he'd do it we were having a barbecue, whatever, Super Bowl, whatever party, whatever we were doing. And he would go and he'd have my wife taste it, my wife Gina. So she would taste it and she'd be like, "This tastes like shit," because of the smoke. And he would give her that look like, "What the f- are you saying?" And because she didn't like that smoky taste and stuff. But everybody else would be like, "Yeah, Scott, it's good." And she would be, she'd lay it on him and tell him how it is. And they had this really good relationship when it came to that. What's funny about that? For Tracy's wedding, he had like all these vintage beers, right? And he popped open a couple, and we're not drinkers. The most I'll drink is a seltzer, and that's when somebody's here with me at the podcast. And so he poured this little vintage beer and gave it to my wife, and my wife's like, "Scotty, this tastes like shit, dude. How do you?" He's like, he got so offended. And he'd give us that look like, "You have no idea what you're talking about." Yeah. You have no clue. And the beers would be another. He'd bring the wildest beers to the house and be like, "This tastes like crap," Yeah. But the one thing about it, he would explain exactly how it tastes, and he was dead on. Yeah. And I know he got his sister
on level 2.
Level 2, yeah. Yeah. And which I didn't realize that one, I didn't know what that was in general. And then once it was explained, I was like, wow. And I go, it makes sense for how he would explain things. Yeah. And I mean, to me, I'm not a craft beer drinker. So whenever I taste that, I go, "Give me a little shot." And I taste it, and yeah, okay, it's good. But my wife would be like, "No, it tastes like crap," and stuff. But he was, he was just, he always wanted to share that portion of it. He didn't talk about it, but he wanted to share it.
Yeah.
You know? So, but when it comes to the person, like, he really didn't talk a lot about things to us. We knew, like I said, we knew what he did. We didn't know at what level he did, you know, but he wouldn't, you know, like any, like an artist and stuff, you know, actor, musician, whatever. When they're home, they're home. They don't want to talk about that stuff, you know. Even when you're working all day, you know, you don't want to bring that home, you know. So he was that way around the family. Once he was there, it wasn't about work. It was about just family.
Yeah.
You know, hanging out with family.
Yeah.
You know, and he would invest his time with family, you know, and he would give my parents so much crap all the time, you know, and just about anything and everything. You know, it got to a point they would get upset and mad at him because he just wouldn't stop. He just constantly just, you know. But it was fun to hang out with him. Even, you know, as brother, he was fun. He was a fun guy.
Yeah, back at that same wedding, like he loved to pick on people. Like if he didn't call you a douchebag, he didn't love you. And so he was picking on me one day, the same day that wedding, and he was picking on me, and like I think at one point he insulted my manhood, and my daughter turns around, looks at him. Is that why you're single? Oh my God! Everyone was laughing so hard that my daughter, who was like 14 years old, got him so good that he was speechless.
So you probably think that to come back with
No.
That probably just blew him away.
Yeah, he was so freaking speechless that day, and he was like, "Fuck, Layla, you got me. You got me." That's all he could say. You got me.
But then he'll probably pay for it later on, so he come back after you. So, yeah, not her, you. Yeah. So
Oh man,
how it was.
the best story that I like sharing about it, and I think I've said it before, was the day that he spent about $60 on our dinner. He barbecue, and it was $60 for just us two. That the next time I told him, dude, I got you. Next time, I got you, bro. I got you. So I gave him an address one day, and he met me out there. He was like, really? Fucking Costco? I'm like, dude, you can have 2 combos, homie. I got you. He's like, you're a cheap date, but fuck, Costco is good. So
That was one of his favorites there.
Yeah.
It's about eating cheap, you know. That's you know, a lot of what you saw him at work was how he was at home too. You know, as far as the personality wise.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, there is a void in our family because of that. You know, so
I believe it.
He was kind of this glue for all of us. You know, and we always knew what to expect when there was a family gathering because you knew what you were going to get out of him.
Yeah.
You know, and he was usually on point every time. You know, so but you know, yeah, he's gonna be missed. He is. So,
What got him into music? Because we didn't know that side of him. He said a couple of times that he sang and stuff. And again, you believe half the shit he says. Again, my wife's like, "Okay, Scotty, sure you do." And but what got him into singing?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. When I was in high school, I used to DJ, and I had the equipment. I had, you know, the LPs. I carried 300 freaking LPs to a dance or whatever, and I did that through high school. And then once I got out of high school, I started working almost immediately in the grocery industry. So I started doing that. So I kind of didn't have to do any of that anymore. Even though I was a wannabe to do all that stuff. And then just one day out of the blue, he's like, "Hey, you know what? Can I use your stuff?" And I'm like, "Sure." You know, it's just sitting at my mom's house there. And go, "You know what? You can have it. You can have whatever you want. If that's what you want, here's the turntables. Here's the mixer.
Yeah.
Here's everything. Microphone, the headphones, everything. Do what you want with it. You could have all these records to use, whatever you want, you know?" And I used to get the 12-inch versions of all these things. And he just started messing with it at the house and started DJing, you know, just started doing that stuff. And really got into music at that time. And then I think he realized he really wasn't a singer, regular type of singer. But I think as he was DJing, he started kind of doing a little bit of rapping while he was DJing.
Yeah.
You know, so he started to get into it that way. And I think that was a big confidence booster for him too, because he used to, believe it or not, he was shy as a kid. Very shy.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, very shy as a young kid. I mean, he would actually hide in the corner. You know, he had the 70s and 80s bowl haircut. He would just...
I saw a photo.
Corner, you know? Yeah, the photos, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, not our best moments, okay? But,
he's going to pull our feet at night for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I think helping DJing brought him out of that, you know, and it didn't cost anything because I had all the stuff there. It wasn't being used. And I'm like, just do it, you know?
Yeah.
And he was much better at it than I ever was. I mean, it was amazing the things he started doing. He started recording them on cassettes and doing all these things. And then I think hanging out with some of his friends, you know, like Raymond and all of them in high school, they would just sit in his room and they would just play music, and all of a sudden you start hearing them rap and do whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that triggered something inside of him that says, hey, you know what, I might have an opportunity to do something here.
Again, I'm not into rap, and I never got into rap, but he does have, again, I only have a few songs of his that I got off of YouTube that I do. It's like that soft side of Scotty that we never saw. So I'm gonna play a quick few seconds of it. You won't be able to hear it, but it's "Sing to Me." I want the listeners to hear that this guy was no amateur singer. He was a good singer.
Paparazzi's undercover from the DEA. Got me face down, cuffed up, and they took me away. Now I'm staying in the cell, trying to figure out my next move. They got me cuffed up, no avenues to get to you. It's all bad on my own. Doing this time on the outside, these leeches all be still in my grind. Got the word that you found a new man, and you ain't feeling me. Another 2 years in this cage, and it's killing me. I gotta get you back.
Oh, I that song, one day I had it on repeat, man. It played like 20 times. And the one time we went to go visit your mom, I think it was for Mother's Day, that same year that he passed, she played a song that he sang for the family, which was beautiful. Again, the side of Scotty that we saw, the douchebag Scotty. We never saw the lovey-dovey. We never saw the Scotty with the heart.
Well, you know, we didn't even know about that song until he passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had never heard it until after.
Wow.
And then I found it when we were cleaning out his place, and I brought all this stuff, all the music stuff and everything to my house here. And I was just kind of putting it all together, and there was hard drives he had of all this music, and he had numerous tracks on it of different things. And out of the blue, I find this song, and I'm just like, whoa, this is kind of cool here, you know? And,
yeah.
And he names everybody there, you know, in the song. And I was just like, crap, you know, he never told us about any of this stuff, you know? I mean, just the music I found in the disc. I mean, there's you know, over a couple hundred different things in there, you know, and they were good, you know, they were really good. I mean, I know it's probably, but they were actually unexpectedly good.
Again, you know? I love this song that I just played because it's you know, it's a different side of Scotty that I've never known. I've never seen, or I didn't know that side. So like the rapping, I've heard him freestyle before, but this is like my favorite song. Of course, only because these are the only songs that I have, and I actually am waiting. If you guys are ever going to release any more of his music, I would love to have a copy, because you know, like I told my boys, again, when Scotty's song comes on the radio on my phone, that's Scotty. We can hear his voice. We'll forever hear his voice, and that's what I do with my podcast. My kids will someday be able to get on here and be like, my dad had hundreds of podcast episodes, and they can hear me just like we can hear Scott.
Yeah, I actually have one of his CD CDs in my truck that I left in there the whole time, and every once in a while accidentally pop it on, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. So, but yeah, I found all his hard drives that have all this music on it. Some of it finished, some of it unfinished, you know. And I know before he passed, I'd asked about him doing another album, and he was working on it. He said, and there's still a couple hard drives in some computers there that we haven't even touched yet.
Oh wow!
They're still sitting there. And so at one point we were going to sit down and do it. When he passed, my mom wanted to do something right away, and I'm just like, no, let's wait. Let's kind of take a step back, and then we'll see if it's something that we want to do down the line, you know?
Yeah.
But here we are 2 years later, people still talk about him a lot, and I told her, I said, that's the kind of impact he has. And I go, yeah, at some point, maybe we get to do this, you know? And, but yeah, it was just, I was amazed when I found all that stuff, and I came home, I sat there and I was listening to it, and I was just like, I knew he had some talent, but I didn't realize he was that talented, you know?
Yeah.
And just the story he told, he was a storyteller.
Yeah.
You know, in his music, you know, and I was telling him that you just want to be like Tupac, don't you? Because that was his thing. You want to be like Tupac. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're the fat Mexican Tupac. You know, so that's, so that was the thing, you know.
He's definitely gonna pull your feet tonight.
Yeah, but yeah, he would crack me up. Since I'm already on that, I'll tell you a couple other stories. You know, we've always had this running thing with my kids that, you know, the big giant serving spoons that you serve, you know, different things at home with.
Yeah. The big soup spoons.
Yeah, exactly. So every time when my kids were here and I'd break out the spoons and I'd show the kids, I go, it's your Uncle Scott's baby spoon. You know?
Yep, he's pulling your feet.
Yeah, and so every time the kids would ask me, what do I use? I said, use Uncle Scott's baby spoon. And they would get out the big spoon, so they knew that what it was, you know. I used to tell Scott that all the time, and he'd just blow me off, like, shut up, you know.
Yeah.
But we always had that relationship. We always cracked on each other.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like I said, if Scotty didn't call you a douchebag, he didn't like you. And like I said, my first week there out in Santa Barbara, he took me under his wing. He actually drove to Oxnard on a Saturday morning to kind of show me how to read the incentive packet. And, you know, we sat there for 2 hours. This is the first time I'm really meeting this guy. And here I am sitting with him at a Starbucks for like 2 hours going over some paperwork that he's teaching me how to read. And like, we helped each other out. We were a team. And that's what I tell. Sometimes I'm like, we were united. We still, after I left and I came out here, we would still go down there and hang out and barbecue. And like I said, that Thursday that I talked to him before he passed, we were making a plan to barbecue and to hang out. And, you know, now it's like it never happened. So we still, after the funeral, we still went to hang out like we planned on doing. And, you know, like today, after this, I'm gonna get ready and swing by, go visit him at the church, at the cemetery, and then go hang out with a couple of the guys that, you know, and have lunch in honor of Scotty. Maybe I can convince him to meet us at the 126. He loved that place.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. That guy knew how to put down a meal. I'll tell you that much. So,
He did.
Yeah, that he did. And he loved good food.
Yeah.
You know, whenever he'd take my kids to breakfast, that was his spot, Cafe 126.
Yeah.
My kids knew that well. That whenever they went somewhere, that's where he went.
Yeah.
So,
it's funny.
He just liked it.
It's funny because one day we were eating there. I think we had just left the cemetery, and it was with Evan, our buddy Evan, his roommate Raymond, right?
Yeah.
His roommate.
Raymond. And
we were just clowning and talking smack, and the blinds all of a sudden behind us went up. I'm like, shh, no more talking about Scotty. He scared us that day. He scared us that day.
Yeah, he's too much. I mean, we were just over there recently because, as you know, my dad just passed away.
Yeah, I heard about that. Sorry for your loss.
So thank you. We just had his services a couple weeks ago, and so yeah, so he's right there by Scott. They have a spot together.
Yeah.
My mom and dad have their spots there, and so and I was there probably a week or two before I went over there. So I try to get out there as much as I can. Even I'm not one to sit and talk with him, but I'll just go out and just see it and just hang out for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those types that go and talk to him. I know my mom tries to go there every day and or as much as she can, and but it's like he's still here.
I mean, we're gonna go, and it's like I told my wife. I mean, we're probably just gonna swing by, touch the grave, and come back. Like it's gonna take us longer to get into the cemetery than actually physically the time we're gonna spend there. But the fact that I did it, I'm gonna do it. It makes me feel better. Like it's funny because when they first adjusted the tombstone, it was leaning to one side, and we all know Scotty wasn't Tyra Banks, so and they're making fun. My kids are like, "Is it leaning like that?" Because Scotty was a big boy. I'm like, "No, they'll adjust it later."
No, that was my thing too when I saw that, and I was like, "Holy crap, he made that thing lean!" So, I mean, even with the ashes, I'm like, I don't know how they fit all his ashes in there. It was just, but yeah, the whole thing was leaning, and I'm like, yeah, that's Scott right there. So
yeah,
I'm sure he's laughing at me, but yeah.
Oh, he's gonna pull our feet. I'm telling you, he's gonna pull our feet tonight. But yeah, dude, just he's very missed, man. Your brother was very loved by many, man. He was loved, and like I said, go back to what my kids said. If my wife has a baby of her own and it happens to be a boy, they want his name to be Scott. And like I said, he was an amazing person. And my wife told me today, "Hey, don't cry when you're recording, all right?" I'm like, "No, I won't try. I'm not gonna try. I'm not gonna cry." But we miss him, man. We miss him.
I know. Again, we all do. I'll share something if you don't mind too. He was a big Raider fan.
Oh yes.
He was a Raider fan.
Yes.
So before he passed, when the Raiders moved to Vegas and stuff, and he put his deposit for the tickets, for season seats. And so I did too. I put my tickets up my thing too, my wife and I. And so, he had passed and all this whole thing. And then I don't know if my sister told you, but when she bought a plaque for him there at the stadium.
I've seen the plaque.
Yeah, you've seen it?
Yeah.
So which we're going to go in a couple weeks again. We're going to actually tour the stadium. So
okay.
So I got the notification about getting season seats. So my wife and I talked about it, and we were only going to buy 2 seats. We ended up buying 4 seats in honor of him. So we have 4 seats that are kind of the Smit seats, over there. So in honor of him, we bought our season seats there. So the PSLs, the whole thing. So he's got seats in that stadium. So
he'll see, and knowing Scotty, he will be sitting right there with you guys.
Oh yeah. So I mean, they're not the best seats. I know he'd complain about that. He'd be like, "Why didn't you get him down on the 50?" But that's the best we can do for him. I'd put him up higher if I could, but
Speaking of complaining, you just reminded me. Speaking of complaining, so the same week that he passed, I had 2 dreams of him, and they were so realistic, like if he was right here. I mean, just looking at you, man, you're a spin image of him. He was a spin image of you. It's like, the dream was so real, John, that he comes to me in my dream and he's telling me, "Oh man, dude, I haven't been able to call you guys. I haven't been able to call anybody. God gave me a phone with only 5 minutes on it and only 1 app." I was like, that is so freaking Scott. That he's well, when he said God gave me a phone with 5 minutes and 1 app, that means he did go to heaven. That's
Yeah, but I'm sure he's complaining up there. Yeah, it's funny you said, because we do look alike. Yeah. And between him, the running thing is just like, they're like, "You guys look alike." I go, "Yeah, but I'm the better looking one." And then he tells everybody the same thing, with him. So, and it was funny because when we worked together, people would actually get confused, because we really, at the time, we were kind of about the same weight, and but he wasn't as huge as he was, later on.
Yeah.
Because he enjoyed his beer and his food and all that stuff, but we were very similar. And so when he would go in the store, and then people that didn't really know us, and then I'd come right in a little while later, and they're like, "Weren't you just here?" And I'm like, "No." But they would, everybody always would confuse us. And I know when he passed away, people were kind of looking at me, and I'm just like, and they're like, "You look like your brother,"
Yeah.
Like Scott. Yeah.
Well, I was showing.
They've always gotten us confused. Yeah.
I was showing my son that I'm like, "Who are you gonna talk to today, Dad?" And I your Facebook photo, and I'm like, "Him." And I would take the phone down real quick. Who? Him. And he's like, he kind of looked at it, and wait. That's not like he said, Scotty. I'm like, Scotty's brother, and okay, cool. But again, man, he's missed, dude. My kids miss him. Sometimes they're praying and they're like, "What are you guys doing?" We're praying for Scotty, so they miss him. And we all have a shirt that it's funny about that shirt. He's wearing he's holding on he's singing holding on the microphone, right? I think. So what I did, I photoshopped him to hold a Subway sub. He was so pissed at me. He was pissed. I'm like, wait a minute. How come you can send me photos to Photoshop everyone else, but the moment we Photoshop you, it's against the law? He was so pissed, dude.
Yeah. He's a jokester with us and stuff. Yeah. But he can take it like he can give it out as much as he can take it too. So,
yeah. Well, John, I mean, we started this podcast with saying, getting to know you, and we just went straight into Scotty, man. But I heard you earlier say something about City of Commerce, or
I'm actually the executive director for the Chamber of Commerce here.
Okay.
And so we help support businesses in the community, and with the with the pandemic, it's hurt a lot of our businesses. I mean, that the industry too. That
yeah.
And so my job, and the fact I get to work in my own community and give back to my community. I mean, I worked in the grocery industry for 30 years, and I travel all the time. It's run. And last few years in the industry, I was a traveling manager, and I would travel all the western states. So I was always on the go, probably 3 weeks out of the month, I'd be gone.
Wow.
And it just got to a point I couldn't do that anymore. It was just physically, not good for me and my family and stuff. And so left the company, and then had this opportunity to work in my own hometown, with people that I know everybody in the community, and just a number of resources. And it was just a good fit at the time. And I've been there a little over about 2.5 years now, and I love the fact that I get to work in my own community.
That's good, man.
If anybody ever gets that opportunity to do that, do it, So,
yeah.
And I get to, work with a lot of people I grew up with, and I get to do what I really love, now. And it's very satisfying, it's great on the family life. I'm home every night now, it's
there you
just,
go.
It's a better quality of life now that I have, and I knew even, like with Scott too, we had these conversations before he passed about him, like getting healthier and doing other things. Because after I left my company Schwann's, I ended up having weight loss surgery, and I lost 175 pounds since then in 2.5 years.
Right.
And so him and I started talking about doing that, about him, doing that surgery and doing other things, trying to get healthier. And I know before he passed, he was sick during the time. He wasn't feeling good during that time.
Yeah.
And so, but him and I had a recent conversation about that. But I had this opportunity here, and I'm feeling better, and I get to work in my hometown, and great. I've been with my wife 28 years now, and I've got 2 kids, twin girls, and they both got married last year, which was great because it saved me money because it was a pandemic, and that didn't cost me a fortune. So I'm pretty blessed here right now with what's going on, and so I couldn't be happier right now with what's happening.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, So,
Any?
all good things.
That's good. I chit chat with your mom once in a while. I check on her. Like I said, I talked to your sister. She's a big fan of she listens to Valentine in the Morning, which is a radio show that kind of gave me this name. And it's funny because one day I was on the air playing a game called Battle of the Sexes, and I got the question wrong, and she sends me a message. Really? You don't know mascara? But yeah, I mean, I try to, like I said, my wife, it's always like, I have you checked on Scotty's mom? And I might have, and then when we heard about your dad, I was like, oh, damn, this sucks. But I mean, any last embarrassing story of Scotty before we say goodbye?
I could probably think of a few other ones. I was thinking about it before we came on. I go, God, what other ways can I embarrass him? There's usually a lot of it relates to food. So yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. The big turkey legs or his baby drumsticks. Whatever. There's all these different things. We always make fun of him.
Oh man.
Yeah, him and I always had that running thing where it was always about food.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I really enjoyed working with him all those years. He was a great brother. We deeply miss him. And as you know, when you lose a family member, it's not the same. But we have great memories from him. I mean, we still joke with him, and only difference is he can't fight back.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Yeah. He's not here to fight back right now.
Yeah, and that's probably and it's payback now. It's payback. But I'll tell you one thing. Even sometimes when I'm doing other things, I still remember some of the things he says, and some of the things we used to do together. I mean, he was a big Dodger fan, so we would go to the games. And I think the last trip we went together was when him, myself, and my dad went. And I think one of my daughters went too. That was one of the last times we went together and stuff. But he was a huge Dodger fan, and he complained the whole time while we were there. Complained about the batter, the pitcher, whatever, and the guy in front that was full of makeup just yelling, or the guy without the shirt that was drinking a beer, he'd crack on him, and, especially somebody with stuff in their face, he'd make fun of them, and, the guy
typical Scotty.
Loved to complain and loved to make fun of people.
Oh, man.
You always knew if you were having a good time when he was around, because you never knew what to expect, but you knew what to expect out of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but no, it was he's going to be missed.
He still is. He's missed. He's going to be missed for a long time. I know the day of the funeral, all of my coworkers would pat me on the shoulder because I was the one crying like the biggest baby. And everybody's like checking up on me and is like, go check on his mom, man. I just miss him. But
but I'll tell you one thing, we truly appreciate everybody that keeps his memory alive and checking on the family, and we all appreciate that. So,
yeah, no problem.
Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
Checking on my mom and my sister and stuff.
Yeah,
I appreciate that too.
No problem. Well, John, thank you for sharing some beautiful memories of your brother. Thank you for being on the podcast. I was like, I have to. It's been 2 years. I gotta show the family that everyone still misses him. So, John, like I end every podcast, buddy, thank you for riding with me.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Indie Podcast. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean.